once again, with General Welfare Presents, I'm Paul Glumaz with the LaRouche movement. And today is the 3rd of October, 2018. And we are exactly 34 days, I believe, from the midterm elections. And the American population was hit with a massive assault on last week. I can't remember which day of the week it was. If you turned your television on to either NBC, CBS, and ABC, your programming was suspended. And for 7 hours, there was only one thing going on, and that was the hearings on the female who alleged that she was assaulted by Kavanagh, the person being picked by Donald Trump for the Supreme Court. And you got assaulted. And the famous media lawyer, attorney, Alan Dershowitz, called it sexual McCarthyism. And so the American people, the American public, got a strong, heavy dose of sexual McCarthyism. And then following this thing, everyone was going around saying, you know, how could, if you're a mother, how could you support this guy? How could you support a rapist? How could you support this? How could you support that? And, you know, they went off the deep, and there was no substantiation. There were many holes in her discussion. She was being paid. Her legal fees were free. She was being paid. Her GoFundMe, at last I looked a long time ago, was $500,000. Man, I can't do that. You know, I can't go in at 67 years old and say that when 37 years ago I was assaulted sexually and have no evidence to prove it. I couldn't do that and then get a GoFundMe and make $1 million. I mean, come on, this is pretty amazing. And now there's all kinds of inconsistencies, and they're now talking about the possibility that she may have committed perjury. But that's, and there may be an investigation into that. So we're having an investigation into an investigation into an investigation into an investigation. And then you have the issue of false memory syndrome, which is a big factor now because they're finding all these people who were sent to life in prison on or heavy prison sentences for capital crimes. And when they finally get the DNA and connect it up, it doesn't connect. So how did this person get convicted? Well, it's false memory syndrome is a very big issue. You know, memories are not the greatest judges. You have to have some corroborating evidence. You know, you can't just go on memory. So, but nonetheless, the population was massively assaulted by this. People in the street that I was talking to, they all, on the day that this was happening, it was Thursday, I believe it was last Thursday, and then Friday, they were in a state of shock. People were going, I can't believe I saw that on TV. I can't believe it. And then Kavanaugh, to his credit, didn't sit there like a lump on the log. He went on the offensive. He attacked it. And I'm glad he did that, because if he hadn't have done it, it would have been all over. But he came out swinging. Oh, he's thin-skinned. No, he better be thin-skinned, because you cannot allow that kind of assault to go uncontested, and he did. And that's very important. So now, almost a week later, the population is getting over the stunning effect of watching the Democratic Party attempt to lynch the Supreme Court nominee, and they're starting to say, "Well, wait a second, what's going on here? well, how do we get here? I mean, how do we get to a point where this kind of thing is going on in Congress? You know, how do we get there? So there's a shift going on. And what it is you got 30 to 40 years of assault, a cultural assault, an attack on the American population, an attack on production. You know, America's population, the working part of the population, the working class part of the population, were the best in the world. They were the most proud and most skilled people in the world. And they were known that way all around the world 40 years ago. And when you shut down your manufacturing capability for the post-industrial society, you're not just shutting down the manufacturing capacity. You're taking somebody who has a sense of themselves, who it's not just pride, it's an identity. I am a worker. I am doing something necessary. I am producing something. My production takes skills. It takes knowledge. It takes the use of my mind. I have to use my hands. I have to learn how to do this. This is not an easy thing. You know, it's my life. You just killed me. When you take away my job and you don't give me another productive job, and you just say, well, you know, there's cheaper labor down somewhere else, those people, their lives are destroyed. They are destroyed. They have no identity. They have no alternative identity. What are they going to be? They're going to be rock stars, movie stars, drug pushers, unemployed. What are they going to be? What other than doing something productive? What else is there? And productive, and then all with that, the hopes are lost. Why are you being productive? Because you're raising a family. Why are you raising a family? Because you believe in the future. Why you believe in the future, you idiot? There's no future. There's only you. That's a hard thing for people like that to take. To be told that year in and year out, there's no future. You know, if you keep producing, you're polluting the planet. You know, climate change. You know, this massive assault on the identity of the core working class population of the United States has been going on for 40 years now. And then the rock, drug, sex counterculture and everything else thrown in. And then there's oh yeah, you can become a druggie. You know, that's a good alternative to being a worker. So the morale, so no wonder the population has lost their morale. But now there's a shift going on, because Donald Trump is telling these people, we're going to, in effect, we're going to reverse this 40 years of crap. Right? He went to the United Nations and he said, there is no independence. There's no freedom. People have no, you are not free. And this is what he said. He said, you are not free if your nation is not free. If the nation you live in and the culture you live in and the language that you speak is not expressed in the sovereignty of the nation and in the hopes and futures of the nation, of the people. He said that. And what does he mean by free? Well, we're not going to allow any international institution, any other nation, to determine our fate. And we will work with other nations on the basis of the same principle. We will work with nations on the basis of their being also independent and being sovereign. And that's how we're going to solve problems. In principle, that's correct. But he's not running the country yet. He's not running the country. He is not in charge. He's not fully in charge of the military. He's definitely not full in charge of the State Department. He's not in charge of the financial system. He's not in charge of the Justice Department. We know that much. He's not in charge of the federal system at this point. Okay? But that could change with these elections coming up, the midterms. There could be a shift. So what are people responding to? So what's going on? What is Trump doing? He's appealing to the people who dropped out. He's appealing to the people who gave up. He's appealing to the people who stopped voting. or maybe never voted because they didn't see any reason to vote. Why would you want to vote? The people who, so 50% of the population generally doesn't vote. The polls are based upon the 50% of the population that are called likely voters. Trump is going for the unlikely voter. Trump is galvanizing a mass movement at this point. But the message is not an anti-message, contrary to what people think. It's not an anti-immigrant message. It's not an radical message. It's a message about the future of America. And this is about ending this 40 years of crap. And that's starting to come through. It's still very opaque, but the message is starting to come through. And it's somewhat simple, but it's starting to come through. And he's not openly attacking the Belt and Road. We do have a trade war with China emerging. But then Trump is saying the time is not now to talk to China. We have to, later we'll have a deal. We'll make a deal with China. We'll actually work. Well, what is that deal that he's going to make with China? What is that deal? Well, it's a deal for what kind of system we're going to be working under internationally. Because that's what you have to do. You have to have an agreement for a new financial architecture. Because you cannot have proper trade relations in the context of the massive financial bubbles, the speculation on currencies, the attacks on nations, that the speculative financial system is involved. You can't have trade. You can't have a fair system of trade until you wipe that system out, until you go to a different system, which is based upon real economic, not speculation. And China's system is not compatible with that. China has a very different economic system than the international financial, but they have been, to some degree, penetrated by the international financial system. There are a significant amount of speculation going on in their system that is traced to the international financial system. So essentially, we have to have a new system, and the discussion between the U.S. and China, which has to bring Russia and India in, is for a new fixed exchange system, an end to this power, an end to this offshore financial system that knows no country, is based in no country, cares about no country, just the looting and plundering and increasing financialization and speculation. The hedge funds, the offshore secrecy jurisdictions, the $50 to $100 trillion that's in those offshore secrecy jurisdictions, they either have to come back into a productive form or they should not exist. There should be no derivatives. Derivatives should be illegal. Glass-Steagall would do that. And so this is where we're going to go. But in order to carry it out, the force that is going to carry it out has to have the power to do so. Right? It's not something like Elizabeth Warren and these people talk about. We're for Glass-Steagall. We're for separating the commercial from the investment. No, yeah, you do that. You wipe out the whole system. You have to have You have to have a new system in place. You have to have a Hamiltonian credit system where you create credit and you allow the commercial banks internally to create credit, but connected to a physically productive activity, connected to an actual real commercial activity. That's where we have to go, and that's where we will have to go. There is no option. There is no alternative. And this is what LaRouche has been saying for 40 years, and this is where we are going to go. And this is where it must go. And with that also you have to have an end to the global system that has kept nations from having a fixed exchange system, that has kept nations from having the kind of relationship with each other that they need to have for their mutual benefit and mutual development. The North American Free Trade Agreement was not an agreement that benefited Canada, the United States, and Mexico. It benefited the financial system and the multinationals and the transnational financial system, corporations. It didn't benefit these people. They deindustrialized Canada and the United States. They sent the jobs overseas or into Mexico. And Mexico didn't get any. In Mexico, agricultural sector and small business sector was wiped out, and all those people ended up having to go somewhere. So this is what we're looking at. This is what we're looking at. So that's where the United States is headed, and the midterm elections could make a big difference, a profound difference, and that's what has to happen on the 34 days from now, 36 days, 34 days from now. Those midterm elections have to deliver a victory for Trump, but a victory. It's not about the Republicans anymore. It's a victory. Trump is the issue in this election. And the Congress has to remain out of the control of the Democrats. The Democrats, because they have completely gone against F. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And because Obama destroyed the last remnant of the FDR legacy in the Democratic Party. He crushed it. These are all broken. They're all broken whores, destroyed whores that know better. You know, Schumer is a destroyed whore. Pelosi is a destroyed whore. Maxine Waters is an even bigger destroyed whore because she knows better. She knows what Obama did. Obama crushed her. He went after her. He sent the House Ethics Committee after her in order to force her into line. You know, the black the leading members of the Black Congressional Caucus were destroyed by Obama. They were forced to submit to policies that they did not support. Economic policies they did not support. And in the final years of the Obama administration, his primary support came from Republicans. And that destroyed the Republicans Party. And that allowed Trump to come in. That was a situation which opened up the potential for Trump to come in because the Republican Party had self-destructed in support of Barack Obama. You know, after promising to use the Benghazi hearings to go after Hillary Clinton and the Obama administration, they didn't do that. And Trey Gowdy, the great prosecutor, is a total idiot. And I agree with former U.S. Attorney of the Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia, Joseph DeGenova, on that point, that Trey Gowdy is a total idiot. And so we have this situation where following the elections, we could see a further transformation. But the British, who are running this whole thing from the top, are not going to give up. They're unleashing Jacobinism. They're unleashing this kind of thing you saw with Kavanaugh is Jacobin. They're going to unleash more of it. It's going to end. It'll be more and more and more and more. They'll probably go for race riots and other types of things. And again, they'll use identity politics. They'll use this kind of smearing to create a Jacobin mob. This is what happened to George Washington and Alexander Hamilton. They faced a Jacobin mob created by Thomas Jefferson, but then Thomas Jefferson had realized that once he was a president that was a very dangerous thing, that Jacobin mob. that Jacobin mob tendency has always been in the Democratic Party, going back to the time of the founding of the Democratic Party with Jefferson. Of course, the Democratic Party was hijacked by FDR and somewhat transformed, but that tradition of Jacobin anarchy, that kind of thing has always been there. Has always been there, and so you're seeing it being activated at this time. And so it as much as I don't care for Republicans, the Democrats need to take a bath. They need to get wiped out in this election, because they need to be taught that that's not the way to go. And maybe the better of the Democrats, if there are any better Democrats, are going to break free and actually reorient towards a Franklin Delano Roosevelt orientation, which is where Trump really is heading. That's where he's heading. And there's new Republicans running who are not the Republicans. There are Republican candidates that are running against the Republican Party in the Republican as Republican candidates, and this could be a profound turning point for the United States. This midterm elections. So now Trump has said that the United States will not abide by the International Criminal Court nor the court at The Hague on the International Court of Justice. These courts are not are international institutions. They have no right to tell a nation how to behave. These are not legitimate. Only a sovereign nation legal system can try somebody, not this international court. So all of this globalism is coming under attack. The World Trade Organization, he's attacking that. And I agree with him on the World Trade Organization. It's not a good organization because it sets up this system of rules whereby you're not allowed to have, in many cases, your country's not allowed to have a massive stockpile or subsidize food to your people, like in India. And India won't go along with the World Trade Organization on that. Otherwise they'd be starved. They'd have mass starvation, or they'd have a powerful social crisis. So the World Trade Organization, there should be no rules governing trade. There should be agreements between nations on what is in their interest in trading with each other and trading with other nations, and possibly also trading in a group of nations. But the trade has to be vectored on the basis of what is in the interest of that nation, not of how to keep a nation from being developed, of how to blackmail a nation, keep them from being developed. Or you don't produce food for yourself. Well, we could cut your food off. You don't produce oil for yourself. We could cut your oil off. Or we could destroy your currency. Or whatever. Nations are not really sovereign. Very few nations are really sovereign. There's a few. China, you can say, is sovereign. Russia's not fully sovereign. It has a huge problem with this financial system, and the West, and with the West. Russia's not fully sovereign. China's probably the most fully sovereign country in the world. India is to some degree sovereign, but they all have to bend to this international system, and this international system is preventing their development. It's preventing. It's not completely preventing their development. In the case of China, yeah, they're moving against that system with the Belt and Road, but that with the Belt and Road Initiative and the massive infrastructure projects, but that is in opposition to the system. But if the system were to change such that would be the basis of the system, then we could move very rapidly. We can pull the world into an industrially developing, scientifically developing world that would just, people's lives would get better, their future would get better, they would be happier, they would have a future, they wouldn't the children wouldn't be growing up thinking that their very existence is a blight on the planet. Can you imagine that today in our country? That's how children are being raised. With this environmental stuff, that their very existence is a threat to the planet. And what kind of what kind of self-identity are you going to have with something like that? You know, this is all going to be changed. You know, this is all in the process of being changed. It must change. It has to change. Otherwise, we're doomed. And the other thing is, as the former Deputy Defense Minister of Germany under Helmut Kohl, Willy Wimmer, wrote, the only thing right now keeping the world from going to nuclear war, going to war, is the presidency of Donald Trump. And he said this. I mean, this is serious. He's a German. He's a very respected German former Deputy Defense Minister who is very respected. His ideas are very respected. He's saying this. And he's right. So this is where the world hangs. And we're going into this election with all of that in the middle of it. And I haven't discussed the declassification issue. I discussed it last time, but I will discuss it further next time.